November 24th, 1971, the eve of Thanksgiving. At Portland International Airport, a man in his mid-40s purchased a one-way ticket to Seattle, Washington. He gave his name as Dan Cooper, though the world would later know him as D.B. Cooper, the result of a mistaken report that cemented itself into legend. He was described as calm, neatly dressed in a dark suit, white shirt, black tie, and polished shoes. Nothing about him stood out. He carried a briefcase and a paper bag. Cooper boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, a Boeing 727 scheduled for a short trip to Seattle. The plane carried 36 passengers and 6 crew members. Witnesses later recalled that he was quiet and polite, a man who ordered a bourbon and soda and smoked cigarettes while waiting for takeoff. Shortly after 3 p.m., once the flight was in the air, Cooper handed a note to a flight attendant named Florence. She initially assumed it was just a man trying to give her his phone number and tucked it into her purse. Cooper leaned closer and whispered, "Miss, you had better look at that note. I have a bomb." The note, written in neat block letters, stated that he had a bomb in his briefcase and wanted her to sit beside him. Nervously, she complied. When asked to see proof, Cooper cracked open the briefcase just enough for her to glimpse red cylinders, wires, and a battery. It looked convincing! Cooper's demands were simple but shocking. He wanted $200,000 in cash for parachutes and a fuel truck standing by in Seattle to refuel the plane for another flight. The request for parachutes suggested he planned to escape by jumping. The crew relayed his demands to air traffic control, and soon the FBI and airline officials scrambled to comply. For the passengers, nothing seemed unusual. Cooper insisted that the crew act normally and told them not to inform the other travelers. He was calm, even courteous. Witnesses described him as soft-spoken and polite, never raising his voice or showing panic. He ordered another bourbon, paid his bill, and even offered to request meals for the crew once they landed. The plane circled Seattle for hours as authorities prepared the ransom and parachutes. By 5:24 p.m., everything was ready. When the 727 finally landed, the aircraft taxied to a remote part of the runway. Lights were dimmed, shades pulled down, and police kept their distance. Cooper instructed the crew to have the money and parachutes delivered in a small satchel via a single airline employee. The exchange went smoothly. Cooper released 36 passengers and 2 flight attendants, keeping only the pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, and 1 attendant, Tina Ma. With the ransom secured, he ordered the crew to take off again, this time headed south toward Mexico City. His instructions were precise. He wanted the plane to fly at an altitude of 10,000 feet, at a speed no faster than 200 knots, with the landing gear down and the cabin deep. The Boeing 727 was one of the few commercial planes at the time equipped with an aft staircase that could be lowered in flight. The weather was poor, with rain, wind, and cold November air sweeping across the Pacific Northwest. Cooper seemed unfazed. He told the crew to remain in the cockpit and not to open the door. Around 8 p.m., as the plane flew over the dense forests of Washington, a warning light indicated that the AFT stairway had been deployed. The crew felt the shift of the aircraft. They radioed to ask if Cooper needed assistance, but there was no reply. At 8:13 p.m., the plane suddenly jolted upward, as if weight had left the aircraft. It was the moment Cooper jumped into the night sky, $200,000 strapped to his body, wearing a business suit, loafers, and a parachute. He vanished into the stormy darkness, somewhere between Seattle and Reno, Nevada. When the plane landed in Reno after midnight, Cooper was gone. The briefcase, with its supposed bomb, was missing. The aft stairs were still lowered. On board, investigators found a black tie, a mother-of-pearl tie clip, and 8 cigarette butts. No one had seen him go. The FBI immediately launched one of the largest manhunts in American history. Thousands of soldiers, police officers, and agents combed the wilderness of Washington and Oregon, searching for any trace of the hijacker. Despite the massive search, no body, no parachute, and no trace of Cooper was ever found. Over time, the legend of D.B. Cooper grew. Theories swirled. Some believed he did not survive the jump, that he perished in the dense forests or rivers below. The weather was brutal, the terrain unforgiving, and Cooper had jumped into pitch-black night in formal clothing with no clear landing spot. Others argued he was a skilled paratrooper or ex-military man who knew exactly what he was doing and walked away with the money. Years passed with only fragments of evidence surfacing. In 1980, a young boy digging on the banks of the Columbia River discovered a decaying bundle of $20 bills, totaling about $5,800. The serial numbers matched the ransom money given to Cooper. The find deepened the mystery. Had the money washed downstream from a failed jump, or had Cooper buried it deliberately? Despite decades of investigation, no conclusive evidence ever identified Cooper. Hundreds of suspects were examined. Some ex-military men fit the description, others confessed falsely, while a few appeared plausible but were ultimately ruled out. Names like Richard McCoy, Dwayne Weber, and Kenneth Christensen surfaced repeatedly, but none could be proven to be Cooper. The FBI collected countless tips, theories, and alleged sightings. They tested DNA found on Cooper's tie in later years, but no matches were confirmed. In 2016, after 45 years, the FBI officially closed the case, declaring they would no longer actively pursue it. D.B. Cooper remains a ghost in American criminal history. His crime was audacious, a rare act of air piracy that captivated the public imagination. He became an anti-hero, a mysterious figure who outwitted law enforcement and vanished without a trace. Unlike most criminals, he was remembered as calm, polite, and strangely likable. To this day, the story inspires books, films, songs, and endless speculation. Was Cooper a skilled skydiver who escaped with the money, blending into society and living in anonymity for decades? Or did he die in the wilderness? His body's still lost among the pines of Washington. The fragments of cash, the missing parachutes, and the absence of any confirmed remains continue to haunt investigators and amateur sleuths alike. What is certain is this: on that stormy night in 1971, a man known as D.B. Cooper walked onto a Boeing 727 with a briefcase, ordered a bourbon, and changed history. With a calculated leap into the unknown, he vanished into darkness and became the only person in U.S. history to commit an unsolved aircraft hijacking. His true identity, his fate, and the ultimate location of the ransom remain mysteries. Locked away forever in the night sky over the Pacific Northwest, the legend of D.B. Cooper endures. A story of audacity, mystery, and a crime that left behind no answers, only questions. That's it for today. Until the next mystery, stay vigilant!